Sejahtera, fellow colleagues from the oil and gas industry, and as was mentioned earlier this morning, welcome to Kota Kinabalu. I am blessed to live in this city, and I must say, as it was mentioned earlier, it's a great place to live. It is really a secret, a well-kept secret. My fellow colleagues on the panel have earlier spoken about what is the Industrial Revolution 4.0. They've talked about the changes to the workforce, the need to upskill. I'm going to try and take a different perspective and talk about what does it mean to us in upstream. Yeah, we are living in a world today that we call the information age, and it is transforming the world around us quicker than ever before. And for us in the energy industry, it's no exception. Innovation and digitalization are moving ahead at light speed. Yeah? And if you look at it from a bigger scheme of things, as an earlier speaker also alluded, the global energy system is also changing. Yeah, we're moving towards a lower carbon world, and at the same time, as an industry, we need to keep up to speed with what is society's expectation of us. Yeah? And the society clearly wants more energy, but also wants cleaner energy. And I think that is from where we start from. What is our purpose? And that is to provide cleaner energy and to fuel the growth on this planet that we live in. Now, if you come back to Malaysia, our population in Malaysia is going to double to 40 million in 2040. And as standards continue to rise, the energy demand will also increase. Malaysia also recognizes the change in energy mix that is about to happen. And Malaysia has also committed and pledged to cut our CO2 emissions by 45% by 2030. So that is not very far away, and Malaysia has already joined with the other nations to reduce our CO2 footprint. So, as players in the oil and gas industry, whether we choose to accept it or not, we are under pressure from all the directions. Yeah? You have a government who is trying to regulate, who has to put in newer and tougher rules, who needs to be up to the global standards that are being set. You have regulators who are also increasingly prescriptive in what they would like our industry to do. You have shareholders who want to continue to see the returns that they have seen all these years. You have employees who look for jobs that are meaningful, that are purposeful, and you have societies and neighbors where we operate who want to see us in the oil and gas industry be those ethical people that we said that we will be, but also to help them with progressing. Yeah? So we are in a very, very unique space in time. And we have an opportunity here with the Industrial Revolution 4.0 to either embrace the change or, if not, we are going to become a dinosaur industry. Many years ago when I studied in the US, one of the first things as a Malaysian student I was told was to go and get your Blockbuster card. Now, for those of you who don't know what is Blockbuster, it was this company who rented DVDs. And once you got a Blockbuster card, basically you can rent DVDs like gila-gila. You can watch all the movies you can ever imagine. You go there and all the movies are there. So you get your Blockbuster card. Today, most people don't even know what is Blockbuster. If you say Netflix, even my children know. Yeah? So we don't want to end up being a Blockbuster. Or the other example is a Kodak, who was so famous, who today, again, no one knows what is Kodak actually doing. So you have all heard about digitalization. And digitalization is not new to us. We have developed digital systems in the oil and gas industry for 4 decades now. Subsea robotics was actually introduced in the 1970s. And today, for example, in Gubusut Kakap, all of our subsea wells are controlled by advanced digital oil field systems. Today, in our office in Kota Kinabalu, you have 100,000 data points that are streamed in real time to the office. probably there are less than a few hundred that are actually being monitored on a daily basis. But the data is there if you want it. Yeah? We have been optimizing production since the 1990s. One of my first jobs when I joined Shell was to optimize gas lift. Some of you will remember that. Yeah? We have been putting sensors and fiber optics inside wells since 15 years ago. So this is not new, right? And as we see in our own lives, the speed and scope of the digital revolution is increasing, and the ability to quickly generate and interpret huge amounts of data is changing. So the data is there. I have given you an example. But what are we doing with the data? And are we actually getting the insights, and then are we actually acting upon those insights? If we can make that transition, then you can have improved asset management, you can reduce safety exposure, and ultimately you can have better business results and better productivity. The cost for digitalizing is also coming down very quickly. I was offshore over the weekend, and today we are trying a pilot for something called Smart Talk. And if you think about it, flange makeup in our industry is something very routine. Anyone who's worked in our industry knows we have a lot of flanges, a lot of bolts to be made. There is a lot of procedures in terms of checking, verifying the tightness, ensuring that the people are skilled and they know what they're doing. Today there is even a technology from downstream that we have borrowed where we can automate this using a Bluetooth torque wrench. And immediately once the guy has actually made the connection, it is on a server, and a guy in the office can actually see what was the force that was applied, whether the bolt was put in the right place, which bolt it was, what was the tightness, and you can even intervene. So the technology is moving very fast, and by the way, it is not costly at all. So how do we now embrace these digital opportunities, and do we choose to differentiate? If point A is where we are today, and point B is the horizon that we can see, because we know what we're working towards, then I think point C is the vision of IR 4.0, and that is the direction that we are heading. It is altogether more ambitious, it is more abstract, and it has so many variables that it's actually hard to predict where we're going to be. So what I will try and do in the next 5 minutes or so is just maybe describe what does the asset of the future look like, if we are to be in that era. The first thing, and there are 5 elements that I will speak about. The first one is fundamental, which is safety. Go zero. The asset of the future will make every effort to avoid putting our employees in jeopardy. What does that mean? It means that in addition to minimizing hazardous work, new technologies will be used such that activities that create exposure, such as working at height, working in enclosed spaces, or working in dangerous environments, will be engineered out or undertaken by robots, drones, driverless transport, or other augmented technologies. We have heard about the connected worker. The connected worker is already today being prototyped. You have people who can already provide real-time feedback with smart helmets and tools that they wear that allow feedback from town on ergonomics and other real-time feedback, so that you don't have to have a field engineer from Norway flown over the weekend to come here because you have a rotating equipment issue. But in real time, you can get his feedback today, just with a local engineer from Malaysia wearing a smart helmet. We have the technology today, but I think in the future, we will design out the need altogether. The second is about people, inspired people. The asset of the future, we will see more self-driven technology and a culture where our workforce is working towards a vision. We believe that people will work in smaller teams and their goals will be less limited to hierarchy. So less top-down but more goal-driven. And you see that already with the millennials today, who ultimately will be the leaders of tomorrow. Yeah? They work in a very, very different style and a very different manner. We also believe that teams will be working with a lot of data centers and professional operations that are outsourced. Yeah? And this will be enabled by abilities such as cloud computing and also advanced data mining technologies. Today, we already, as a company in Shell, have Shell business operations in 5 different countries across the globe, and in Malaysia, we operate a very big data center in Cyberjaya. There's one in Bangalore as well, and a few other countries in the world. We believe that the future will be more and more of these centers who provide the backroom support for those routine operations that you can afford to outsource. Without saying it goes that our staff and contractors will be using a lot more market technology. Today you already hear of bring your own device, BYOD. Okay, not bring your own booze, but bring your own device to work. And more people are working remotely from home. And we know that in the future, tools such as laptops and PCs that the company provide, I think will become outdated completely. Yeah? More extensive and reliable data means greater integration, visualization, and reduced cycle time. So the working world will be very different. Yeah? And I think our asset and support teams will continue to know their kit. And I don't know what the kit of the future will look like. But I do know that the workforce will be digitally literate and will have a lot of data analytics skills. Today, in my past job, when I worked in HSSE, we always had this challenge of every day we have hundreds and hundreds of ACTs, stop cards. But actually, what is the exposure? It took us a long time, sometimes months and months, to go through all those stop cards to figure out where is the exposure, what is the real risk. By the time we figured out the risk, too many people were actually being injured. Today, with digital ACT solutions, the HSSE team can actually mine the data and come back with you very specifically. In your site today, hot working at heights is a risk, and it's a risk particularly on deck C underneath the compressor. How do you know that? They have the data. They can tell you that. You need to go look at that. And a few times where they have come up with those insights, it's actually true. We just never were paying attention to the data that we had. Leadership will also see a revolution. Leaders, all of us, will need to be agile on unlocking capability, pushing for innovation, and most importantly, how do you keep your employees motivated and engaged? Because I believe the conditions will be very dynamic. The third is optimal operations. The asset of the future will be a highly reliable organization with world-class performance in reservoir management, wells, equipment, and facilities. It will balance the use of power and chemicals against economic gain and will fully incorporate environmental and safety constraints. Today, we have what is known as proactive technical monitoring, and I think the future will see proactive technical monitoring grow to a point where before even a pump breaks down, it is telling us that it is going to break down, and we will reduce process safety events, production loss, and maintenance costs. All of this predictive material, predictive analytics, predictive technical monitoring will become routine, and I think the next, if I may even say, IR 5.0 will all be about artificial intelligence. Yeah? All maintenance work will be executed and based on predictive nature, and as I said, equipment will automatically send signals when maintenance is required. And of course, for our colleagues in Petronas, the most important thing I think will be that reservoir recovery and well performance will be optimized to a point with advanced analytic systems, and we will be able to inject water and gas and get it right, rather than just, as sometimes they say, kaedah cuba-cuba. This time we will actually know where it needs to go. Fourthly is operational excellence. Yeah? And today we have some fantastic integrated activity planning. Yeah? But if you think about it, we are still using spreadsheets and databases to track aircraft, work, materials. If you think about the Amazon of today, and you think about the F1 pit stop drivers who can change 4 tires in 3 seconds, we are still very far in our planning that is still very manual. And so I think the field of the future will be one where planning is not just someone in an office trying to put a plan together, but it will be far more integrated than it is today.